Small business owners do not have the time nor the energy to constantly be reaching back and dragging people up alongside them as the business grows. What they need is people who are ready to jump ahead and look back and say, hey, I see this coming around the corner. Here are my thoughts. Here's what I think we should do.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a great one. Our guest is a team and leadership coach with BizChix.com, and she is the host of the Stacking Your Team podcast. Shelli Warren, welcome to the show.
Hello, Michael. I'm so happy to be here.
It's great to have you on the show, and yeah, we tried to do this before and the internet wasn't playing well. And I was like, I know this was going to be a lot of fun having you on just from that brief conversation prior. But let's get into it. Tell our audience a little bit about you and your career journey leading up to this point.
Well, thank you. I am a former corporate leader. I spent over 25 years serving technical teams at Procter & Gamble. I live in a city called Brockville, Ontario, which is not too far from you at all, Michael. And we had an incredible presence here in the community, as you can imagine, when there's a large employer with that kind of brand awareness and that kind of an impact. So I spent 25 plus years at that Fortune 50 corporation where I came in initially learning core skills and then quickly shifted into learning technical skills and then learning how to lead. And, that always starts with learning how to lead yourself first, and then you can start to lead people. So I learned a lot about innovation, traveled the globe for the company, mainly leading highly technical teams. We have, of course, billion-dollar brands at Procter & Gamble. And so some of the work that my team and I did was we led innovation projects for those multiple million-dollar brands that we have. So interesting career. And I like to tell people that I had a wonderful career, and now I'm having a second wonderful career.
Beautiful. What was the tipping point that had you go in and leave that career and go that great career and leave and go into this new great career?
Well, to be totally transparent, I started there when I was 28 and my daughter was 4 months old because, as your listeners will remember, back then in Canada, our maternity leave was 4 months. Now, of course, it can be 18 months if you want it to be. But I ended up getting incredibly involved in my community with joining as a, leading boards of directors, really diving into volunteer work. I was being a part of a team that brought in an incredible leadership conference. We did that for 10 years running. I really became entrenched with supporting other women in the community, helping them create what I would call an encore career, helping them create an exit strategy out of their corporate careers and into something that was more, that really fueled them more. So what ended up happening, Michael, was that I started loving what I was doing outside of my role more than what I was doing inside of my role. So I had started my own side hustle, as we would call it, and was able to build that up into being quite a profitable business, especially when you look at how many hours I was working in my so-called day job. And it really gave me confidence to know that there's another option for me out there. So at 52, I retired from that role and leaned hard into building up my own business, and then became part of the Biz Chix community and was invited to speak at their live events, I was invited to join a mastermind group. And then I was invited to join the Biz Chix team in a leadership role. And so I've been doing that now at Biz Chix as our team and leadership coach for over 4 years.
Wow, amazing. Tell us a little bit about Biz Chix. What is that?
So Biz Chix, we support service-based business owners, female service-based business owners from around the world. And what we're really all about is helping those women get more time, more freedom for themselves, definitely more impact, and of course, more profit. And so we have 2 group coaching programs. Our founder, Natalie Ekdahl, she's our CEO and founder, and she started podcasting in 2014, way back, and she's continuing to have an incredible award-winning podcast. And so through her group coaching program, which is called Six Figures Lab, she helps those business owners they reach 6 figures, and then they start to build out their next 6 figures in revenues. And then with my program, I have a program called the Leadership Lab. And that program is for women who have a team of 5 or more. Some of them have multiple locations. Some of them have virtual teams. Some of them have over 40 team members. Those women come together to learn how to be a more capable leader, build out a high-performing team, and then really become the leader the business and the team needs them to be, because through my tools and concepts and frameworks, they're able to get out of the day-to-day operation. So they can walk away and have more quality time outside of the operation and be leaning harder into business development and visibility strategies.
Wow. It's amazing. And it sounds like you've really found your place right now with all the experience that you have, so valuable, and then bringing that now into what you're doing with Biz Chix.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we learned prior to this interview that one of the things that you do really well is put together dream teams within these businesses. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So this really links up well to why when we decided to launch our sister podcast, right? So we have the Biz Chix podcast, which Natalie hosts. She's been hosting that since 2014. When we decided that we really should launch a secondary podcast, because our clients were starting to build out teams. Like they were starting to look seriously at scaling and what would it take to get out of these day-to-day operations. So we decided to launch a sister podcast, and we called it Stacking Your Team. And the reason why we called it Stacking Your Team is because that's what I was known for in my corporate career. So it became part of my reputation to attract incredible people that wanted to come and work alongside me. Now, part of the attraction, like full disclosure here, part of the attraction was just the incredible work. Like I had so many incredible projects that were gifted to me to lead. And so it was really exciting, and it was very innovative, and it was very creative, and it was a place where you could come and take your core skills and your value-added skills and really come in and move the business forward. So it was very exciting. And at the same time, I was able to really build out these incredible teams that were so agile and full of expertise. And yet at the same point, be able to have the leadership skills to juggle the egos and the validation and just all those adult coaching conversations to really ensure that every single person that was on those project teams had a great experience and grew and were able to keep their co-working relationships intact. And many of them circled back. So I ended up having, some of the same people apply again and again for these roles. And it was just a wonderful experience for all of us. So that whole reputation, I mean, there was some commentary often, from peers that would say things like, well, no wonder she's so successful. Like, check out that stacked team she has. Mm-hmm. So that kind of really ended up sticking with me. It became part of my reputation, and I owned it. I absolutely owned it. And so that's why we decided to call our sister podcast Stacking Your Team.
Wow. Wow. And you've done 212 episodes on that podcast. And, what have you learned after 212 episodes of stacking your team with all these great guests?
I learned so much. So at both of our podcasts, we feature clients. We rarely have a guest on because we have so many incredible clients and they have so many incredible stories to share that we want to make sure that more people know who they are and what it is that they do. And we want to showcase their journey. So one thing that I have learned hosting that podcast for 4 years now is that most small business owners beat themselves up about the fact that they don't know how to lead a team. And somehow they tell themselves this story that says, hey, I launched this business and it's really growing and it's doing really well. And I know that I'm really making strides in it. And I'm really having an impact with my clientele. And as I start to bring new people onto the team to really help us be more agile and be able to really take care of those wait lists that I have, I'm finding that I'm not a people person. Or I'm finding that I don't think my team really likes me. Or they're finding that there's a lot of drama amongst their team. Or they find out that their team is not pulling in the results. The outcome is not happening as easily as she thought it was going to happen as she stacked her team.
It's amazing. And just looking at some of the guests on your podcast, I mean, I really think this is a great find for our listener because a lot of the topics that you're talking about every week, week in, week out, such an important topic around building your team, managing your team. And I absolutely love the title of it. Who wouldn't want to stack their team and do some of the things that you've done with your career and building powerful teams? So very cool. And so let's talk a little bit about what is it that you need to do? Like, what's some of the key things that go into creating this stacked dream team?
Well, the first thing that we like to coach our clients through is really understanding who is your next best hire. And I kind of get on a bit of a soapbox sometimes, but
It's okay. We like that.
I really want our clients and your listeners to think about the future. Too often, small business owners get in such a panic because they're overwhelmed and they're working way too many hours and their family is not happy and they're just feeling like they can never get ahead. So what happens is they will hire anyone. Like people hire people from the soccer field. They'll bump into a former colleague in the grocery store and offer them a job. And what they're getting overwhelmed with is this sense of scarcity and this incredible, like crushing sense of, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to get someone in here to help me. And so instead of slowing down and thinking about who is my next best hire and start to describe who that person is and what is the value that they're going to be bringing into the business and how can this person hit the ground running immediately and how can I look for people to come and join the team that are going to stay with me long term. Like one of the crushing things that happens for small business owners is they have this rampant turnover. And, in the corporate world, it doesn't bite as deep. But in the small business world, man, that stings for a small business owner to go and hire someone, onboard them, train them, get them entrenched in the business, really letting them off doing what you hired them to do, and then find out, jeepers, this person isn't really a fit. This role it's not perfect for him. All of those worries and concerns can break your business. And so what we like to encourage our clients to do is when you're thinking about hiring, hire people for the future. So yes, you have an immediate need right now in this particular role, providing this particular level of contribution and these outcomes. But let's look for people who have what I like to call hidden talents. So people that have other curiosities, people that have former work experience that could transition well into your role that you have open right now. So let's provide the future for these people to come and join your team versus thinking they're only going to be here to do this one thing. Because small business owners do not have the time nor the energy to constantly be reaching back and dragging people up alongside them as the business grows. What they need is people who are ready to jump ahead and look back and say, hey, I see this coming around the corner. Here are my thoughts. Here's what I think we should do. Right? We want our team members to be alongside us or a few steps ahead of us, not so far behind that it's so energy draining trying to bring them up to speed.
This is great. I think that experience of having the scarcity mindset and really needing somebody to fill the role, it's really a trigger point and people can make I've made bad decisions in my career and hiring way too fast and then being, in a situation because so much goes in. We put so much time and energy into hiring people that it's that alone to be doing that on too often of a time frame is just a lot of waste. And that time gets pulled away from, like you said, your family.
Yeah. And so what can happen is business owners tell themselves a story that hiring, well, it's just too much work. I'm just going to load up the people that I already have. And the risk there is that they get overwhelmed and they get burnout. And then, of course, they quit. Or the business owner will say to herself, you know what? I just don't have the energy to start the search for someone. I'm just going to do it myself. And there's just this perpetual circle of overwork, overwhelm, overpromising, and underdelivering to both your clients and your team and your family.
It's so true. Now, when you are looking, so we talked about, you hire somebody from the soccer field, right? Now, that person might be great, but how do you vet them? How do you know if they're going to be part of the dream team?
Exactly. So it comes down to the hiring process that you have in place. And I know sometimes small business owners can really set up this like casual vibe for how they hire. And what I want to encourage you to do is think broader than that. Right? You're offering a career, not a job. And we want people to come and join your team because they see the value in having a career alongside you. So you need to present yourself that way right from the very beginning. So when you're getting to that, and it comes down to your job posting, do you have a career portal on your website? Is there a way for you to vet your candidates that are coming forward and that you would only meet and interview people who you are excited about? And once you meet with them, it's really about diving deeper into those questions because what you're wanting to hear is, does this individual have an employee mindset or do they have the mindset of a business owner? And so in the Leadership Lab, we teach a lot about this, of how to motivate your team so that they're stop thinking like employees and they start thinking like business owners, because that's what you want. You want people that have a passion for winning, people that are curious about the business, how the business runs, curious about the niche, the trends that are happening within your marketplace and within your industry. And you want people who want to leave a stamp on the business. So when you are interviewing, you're wanting to hear stories about how this person learned. What was the last thing they learned? How did they learn it? Did they create any assets in their former role for their former employer? And if they created an asset, did it become the standard for the company? Is it still being used today? Right? That's the kind of brain power and energy that you want to start stacking your team with, because people come in, we hire people for anchor skills, right? That's how we scale, because you were the asset, you built the business, you were the beacon of light that attracted everybody over to you. And it got to a point where you just ran out of capacity. So now you need to hire people that have similar skills to you, those similar base anchor skills, but we're also wanting to cross-train them And then we're also wanting to look for those value added skills that can really take your business to the next level. And typically it's there. That's the sweet spot that really ensures your retention, because people start to feel like they have a career. It is so much more than a job. So let's look for stories that confirm that. Let's look for evidence right there in the interview.
So it's an interesting point, and I the bookkeeping business that we know today, I think what can happen is for our listener is that you can think like we're just hiring. So it's there's a big piece of compliance. Like this is how we do the job. It's the same sort of thing each day in, day out, and so, to think about like what else could they evolve into, it might be a limiting. How do you lift those preconceived notions of how you run your business today versus bringing an idea like this, like, wow, this person could grow into something, like maybe they'll be our salesperson, or maybe they'll be someone who's working in our operations department, like a small business going from micro to sort of a bigger business, maybe doing other things and having team members doing stuff that maybe the business owner can't even imagine that they'd be good at doing. How do you make that leap?
Well, I think it starts with looking at your wait list. Like your wait list is it's priceless, because every single client that's sitting on a wait list wanting to work with you has a story, and there's something unique about that individual. So when you look at that wait list and you say to yourself, isn't this interesting? We have 6 car dealerships that want to come and work with us. Do I have bookkeepers on my team right now that would be thrilled to be that bookkeeping expert for a car dealership? And if the answer is no, then let's build some. Let's train our team. Let's educate our team on what's so great about serving a car dealership, and why do car dealerships have such an impact in your local community. So what's happening here is you want to build a team where there's a future. You can literally see the future that enables you to be able to always be agile and at the ready when you see a new client come forward and wants to hire you for your services and your expertise. The worst thing that can happen to a service-based business owner is you have a client knocking at the door and you don't want to let them in, because you don't have the team set up, or you don't have someone who would be delighted to come and serve that client. So what we want to do is, as the CEO, when you're looking at your org chart and you're looking at the people that you have today, let's build an org chart for the future based on what data is sitting in your wait list for you. So a lot of time with the clients, like we have some bookkeeping agency owners in the leadership lab as well. And they've really learned how to stand out amongst the crowd. They've really formed a niche. And within that niche, they'll have micro niches, but they've also have built account managers that oversee the growth of the business within their niche, or I'd like to call it a profit center. So they'll look to see, what is the trajectory for growth within my profit center? Do I have the capacity to meet that demand? And what I mean by capacity, it's not just people, but do we have the latest knowledge? Do we know what's happening in terms of trends? Have we hosted any focus groups to even listen to hear what does that particular type of client, what are they really wanting when they come looking for bookkeeping services? So that particular account manager or that profit center leader can really help the CEO start to build out this business that is ready, primed, and geared up for the future. And then that can have that trickle down effect in terms of, where are you going to spend your marketing dollars? Who's going to be your next hire?
I like this thought. I like the idea of the dreaming and visioning of, hey, we've got 2 of these customers. What if we had 20 of them or 5 of them? And then saying, well, who would we need and how would that happen? I mean, it's a really wonderful way to think about, and for the niche or the profits. I like the profit center. It's a nice way of talking about it, is that it can give, that's another access point, I think, to getting into that niche or niche, is actually starting to dream from that perspective. And like you say, when you vision things out, they actually, you can start to build a plan on how to get there. Coming back to the teams, what happens when they make a bad hire? How do you deal with that?
Well, I think we've all been there. We've all had really high hopes for someone, and we've also had people who had really high hopes of us. And sometimes it just doesn't work out. And a lot of that happens right from the get-go, which is the job posting itself. So even the story that we were just talking about, part of your role as a CEO when you're creating those job posting is to create a story that invites someone to come and play a role in it. So talking about what your plans are for the future, talking about the client roster that you have, saying, I'm looking for someone who's interested in serving this kind of client and this kind of client. Telling all those stories really help flush out people that would not be interested, but also create a rush of people that would. And so sometimes we hire someone and we have them join our team. And if we're not doing a great job of even selecting the right person based on their interests and based on your need and the future demand of the business, we can end up having someone on our team that's not there long-term, or not there to really learn anything, not there to be stretched, and therefore not there to be a long-term asset, quite frankly, right? So what we want to do is build out an alignment right early in the process. And this happens within your first 90 days of having someone on your team. You're really learning more and more about them. They're learning more and more about you. And you're both asking the same question. Is this going to be a long-term thing or no? And you want to flesh that out between that first 90 days by asking lots of questions, having lots of touch points, really diving into understanding what are they curious to learn next? Did they really bring the anchor skills into the business that I had hoped? And have I been able to cross-train them on anything? And do they, even though we have wonderful SOPs and we've got workflows and we've got all the automation and our back offices, it's all there. Are they following our standards? Or are they jumping around? Are they creating their own work processes? Are they upholding our compliance and quality standards? Or do they not get how important that is? So it's those deeper questions that we want to ask during that first 90 days to really flesh out whether or not this person is going to be a long-term fit, and then also confirm for that individual whether or not they really want to work there long-term.
I love this with the touch points and really getting that initial assessment. Is this going to be long term? And it goes a long way to find out how you might be able to make it long term. Because if you're not checking in, it probably won't be long term anyway. So,
well, yeah, and it's more than just checking in. So we like to coach our clients to use a performance review at 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days, and included in that. Like if we back that truck up even a little bit more, as small businesses, we have to take a few things from corporate that we've learned that works really well. And one of the things that we know works really well in a new hire situation is onboarding and performance reviews. And let's use those experiences and that data that's being collected, let's use it early on in their journey of being a team member, because I think we've all been there where you've really poured into someone and it's 6 months later, it's 18 months later, and finally someone admits out loud, hey, you know what? I'm just not feeling it with this individual anymore. I'm spending so much time coaching that I've now moved into over-coaching, and the ROI on this individual just isn't there, and they seem so unhappy.
It is a fantastic philosophy that I don't think many actually take on, which is this onboarding piece. Like I think of even in our own organization, like we do little things and here and there, but there's so much that can be done to help empower people to have a really great experience that sets them up. And again, it's like recouping that investment of going through, finding the dream team member, but making sure that they're set up powerfully to become someone who really excels inside the organization.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we lose sight of this notion of creating a dream team because it has to be their dream too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, you have a dream. You launched this business. You're having an incredible impact within your niche. The team members that you have right now are in it to win it as well. And so they're looking for their next peer. And are we bringing someone into the business that is going to fit well within the culture that we've already created? Or are we going to bring someone in that's going to disrupt the culture that we created, but in a bad way? And so then it really comes down to those CEOs really stopping to think about, I need to put my money where my mouth is. So I told this story in a role posting about what it's going to be like to come and work here. And I like to encourage people that if your office is in a strip mall and the parking is in the back alley, just say that. Instead of trying to create this Google team environment, with a ping pong table in the middle of the break room, just say it. Say what it is that you're offering, including money, including compensation or no compensation, and definitely including hours of work. And then also talk about the type of clientele that you serve. So paint a story that has a space for them to come in and join you in that story. And that way they will become part of your dream and they will adopt your dream too, right? That's how, when I told the story earlier about when I retired at 52, my dream changed, right? I had a wonderful dream career and then started getting introduced and more involved in things that were happening in my local community. And then also wanting to shift my focus onto helping other women really, be all that they were wanting to be. And so my dream changed. And so that's what happens. That's why people leave, is because their dream is not aligned to your dream. And so as CEOs and leaders in your organizations, you really have to be reinforcing it, nurturing it, asking deeper questions, and building out those relationships. Right? I think sometimes we pour a lot into a new hire, and then there's this sudden switch where we kind of drop them like hot potatoes. Because now you can say to yourself, well, I think they're good now. I think they're pretty well set up. Okay, finally, I can focus back into what I need to do. When in reality, what you need to do is continue to focus on that new hire.
Yeah, it's the continuing relationship. I think any relationship, it can fall into that trap of everything's good. We don't need to worry about this anymore. That can be dangerous territory. It brings up one that I wanted to ask about as well, which is meetings. This just dream team has to get together. They need to meet. We talked about performance reviews, team meetings, all that good stuff. A lot of people don't like meetings. How do you actually make a meeting or create a meeting or conduct a meeting where it's super impactful and people get a lot out of it and they're valuable to the organization?
Well, I think we could probably all agree that the best meetings are short, they have an intention, and something actually gets done at the meeting. Like instead of just everyone talking. So there's different styles of meetings and they all have their own purpose. But to be invited to a meeting where quickly you realize, I shouldn't really be here. Like my best value is not here in the meeting. So we have a suite of meetings that we like to coach on. And in the Leadership Lab, we call meetings touch points, and on purpose, because that whole the word meeting just conjures up a lot of trauma for a lot of people. And so what we want to do is really create these touch points. And a touch point can be a stand-up meeting, like a daily huddle, right? Where you're coming together on Zoom or in person. And it's really about doing a round robin of tell me what you're focusing on today. It's almost like a football huddle. And you're really just getting aligned and getting geared up to go and do what you need to do for the day. And then there's times where you're going to want to host a leadership team meeting that could be a half an hour long. And you might want to do that at the start of the week to set direction for the week for your leaders so that they all know what are the compelling business needs, what are the current crises that are happening with a particular client or maybe within a profit center, what looks like help. Do we need to reconfigure what we thought our priorities were going to be? And let's cut a game plan for that. I like to say, who's got the R for that? Meaning like for every action item, who's got responsibility to go and execute that? And then let's get clear on what we're focused on this week, and then let's go do it. But a lot of those meetings can be done really efficiently if you have someone who is leading the meeting. There's an agenda, and there's some time boundaries there. And I think sometimes CEOs find themselves in a position where they honestly believe that they need to be in every meeting that takes place at their business. And they do not need to be in every meeting. What you need to have is build a leadership team. It could be 2 people, it could be 16. It just really depends on the size of your business. But what you want to have is leaders who are responsible for a profit center or a process, and those leaders lead their own meetings. And so the CEO does not need to be there.
I love it. And that I would imagine our listener who runs their own teams would love that too, because not being in a meeting means there's free time to do other things. So it's about duplication and being as productive as possible. Shelli, this has been absolutely wonderful. Please tell us again the name of your podcast, and if our listeners want to learn more about Biz Chix or any other cool things you're doing, where would they find the best place to go and check that out?
Well, you can definitely subscribe, like right now in your app. Just open up your app and type in Stacking Your Team. I should be right there under Stacking Benjamins, which is an incredible, popular podcast. Hit subscribe and, look forward to a fresh episode every Tuesday. And the one thing I will assure your listeners is the content that's being shared and the clientele that's being shared, and even the Ask Shelli How to Say It episodes that happen, they're all geared to that small business owner. So what I like to do is I like to take my corporate education and expertise that I have and strip it down into something that is super meaningful for that small business owner. So I would invite everyone to come and subscribe to the Stacking Your Team podcast. And of course, connect with me on LinkedIn, where every Wednesday I do a LinkedIn Live.
Very cool. Well, there's 2 amazing resources and opportunities for our listeners. And I want to thank you on behalf of our listener for your generosity in coming here, sharing what you know. And I know we'll definitely hear from you, I'm sure, in the future.
Thanks so much, Michael. And congratulations on everything you're doing to support those bookkeepers out there. I mean, anyone that has any kind of a business knows that they're a critical team member. And often they might not appear in team meetings, and they might not appear on your org chart, and they might not be invited to your leadership retreats or your team building events. But maybe they should be. Like maybe we should be spending more time nurturing the relationship that we have with our bookkeepers and our CPAs, especially if they are meeting your needs and if you're delighted with the relationship and the outcome that you have. Let's maybe pour a little love on our bookkeepers and our CPAs this week.
I love it. Absolutely love it. We need to do more and more to get our bookkeepers invited to those really cool retreats where they can bring their gold. I love it. Well, Shelli, thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. Be sure to check out our Thursday bonus podcast episodes that will happen from time to time. We call it our Spotlight Series, and you will not want to miss it. Remember, if you'd like to learn more about us, check out thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, take care and bye-bye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.